Quick word association. A doodle, a poodle, a noodle.
What do you say? Let's go roll in the hay. We'll make it a great day. Eh? No way. I'm going to smoke a J. It's looking good, dude. Where's Florida State on this recruiting thing right now?
I think they're 5 on the composite, maybe 6. I think they're 5.
For 2020?
Yeah.
Yeah, there they are. There they are. And that's all Willie Taggart's doing? Man, if you can have a decent showing this year, the question is, as a fan, do you want that? Or do you want them to already get another coach?
No, I'm not. There was too much past damage with Fisher that I just think it's unfair to not. I mean, it was frustrating. I've never turned off a game in the first half, and I did after 8 minutes of the Clemson game.
Well, I mean, you saw the fat guy reading. It was a professor, apparently, right?
At least he could have put a shirt on. He could have hooked me up with a shirt instead of his rolled up like 82 jeans.
Yeah, that's pretty rough, brother.
Yeah.
So,
but it was fitting. Who?
Oh, that's right. You have Kendall Briles coming in, huh?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? I mean, like,
not a big fan of it.
Could
not
do good things potentially for the offense, but it's morally. I know you're a man of good values.
Yeah, I'm not. It's a tough pill to swallow.
How much involvement did he really? I mean, even if he was involved more than he should have been, it was his dad though. Like, it's your dad, man.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not just his boss, but his dad.
But do you think there wasn't a person in the program that was in the locker room every day didn't know about what was going on?
No. But do you think that? I mean, I honestly thought when the Penn State thing went down, or maybe it was, and I'm not a huge Penn State fan, but growing up a bit up north, I mean, Joe Pa's been there forever, and I always thought, maybe it's me refusing, but do you think when it first came out, had full, kind of full exposure and knowledge, or do you, because he played it off like he was just...
Yeah,
because I do believe, we talked about this, didn't you and I or somebody, with the whole, with John, you said something about the Clemson thing, about how we just fired our assistant basketball coach because their whole investigation for the NCAA basketball went down, and they came to Clemson because there was talk, because Zion Williamson, remember I told you, said he was coming to Clemson. He's from Greenville, Spartanburg, right up the road. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if Duke comes calling, you're going to change your mind. And I was like, damn, we had actually had a chance at him. I mean, it was good football, but point being is so that's how this kind of came about. And the guy said that, the football program keeps it tight. And it pisses me off because, media can twist it however they want. But, knowing our program, I do truly believe in what we practice, what we preach, because we show it everywhere in the recruits and everything that, we want to grow. We want to build men of character first, not football players. And you typically, under Dabo's helm, haven't seen just a bunch of slack-jawed yokels running around the field getting in trouble. I said this the other day. They could be the best athlete in the world, but if they're just so much trouble, in a college coaching environment, okay, where it's not like the NFL where you have owners with millions of dollars. You might be bringing an outside person to watch this person for you, babysit this person. Like that's more work than is needed. So it's actually a smart thing to kind of say, hey, listen, I know you're a great 5-star, one of the best, but I just, grades aren't meeting, or whatever excuse you need to kind of say, I'm not offering you. That being said, he said he keeps it tight. They keep it tight to the vest. And I do believe, or they keep it tight. And I think that what it means to me is that we run a very tight-knit program. We have everything under control, that the way they run it under Dabo's helm. But they make it seem like, they keep it tight to the vest. They keep things quiet. That's what I think they want you to believe, right? So, because Clemson all of a sudden's winning. Okay, this is not Ole Miss getting the number one lineman, the number one receiver, and like what was it, the number one player and defensive end in Kim Dichie that one recruiting year, and all of a sudden out of nowhere, not that it's not a cool place or great place to play,
but
it was a little
like
head scratching. Yeah. We've been building our program since we finally cracked an egg with CJ Spiller down in Florida. And ever since then, we found a little pipeline in Florida, got a little Martavis, Sammy Watkins, and so like we've spread our wings a little bit. I say all this to say I mean, I don't know where I was going with it. We were, the fact of the matter that they can blow that out of proportion. And where was I going with it? What was I talking about before I went off on this tangent? I was looking at something that...
Yeah, about Bryles. You were talking about Bryles.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Thank you. This is why I need him, because I did this... The one you hear with Matt and we were trying to remember. He couldn't remember either. This is what I'm talking about. He'll bring me back to center. So the point is that, I do believe, though, that we do carry that character at Clemson. Now, can something still happen on the coach's watch, even though he doesn't want it to? Sure. It could happen without him knowing, and unfortunately, he has to fall on the sword. And I do believe Dabo would if something serious, even if he didn't have knowledge on it, something behind the scenes, but it came up. So bringing it back to Joe Pye, like how much, because he came off when the whole thing went like he didn't know anything about it, or maybe a little bit, but but did he? Do I want to believe that? I didn't see all of the movie on HBO, but do I want to believe more that he didn't know? Because it's Joe Pye. You shut up, Siri. So now coming around to Bryles. I mean, do you think he knew? You say everybody on that staff knew. Did they, or did they not? Or, unfortunately, maybe is it more guilty by association? Because if that's the case, he may be able to really help you guys.
Well,
long story short.
I think there's a few layers to all of that, though. Because, like, for example, with Paterno, I look at, if I was to bet, I would say it was more of a, I didn't want to know, and for a few reasons. Number one, think about his age and the generation he grew up in.
Yeah.
I mean, that was not something anybody talked about. That was the dirty secret, be quiet kind of thing. Yeah. And the idea probably was to insulate Joe from that, because Joe was already an icon at that point. Now, do I think he knew there was a problem? Absolutely. Do I think he knew the extent and what he was doing? Oh, are we on, right?
Yeah. I told you. Now continue.
No, oh, sorry.
I did tell you before that we're just gonna be flowing, baby.
Okay, my bad. I had no. All right. So the idea is that, like,
and you, the listener, will be able to enjoy this more often, hopefully. Continue.
So the idea really behind Joe Paterno is I think that's a generational thing, but I think he definitely knew what was going on, in the sense that he knew there was something wrong with Sandusky, and there was an issue there. And then I go back to, but you look at just the cowardice of it, even the McCreary, and he saw it. He saw it going on.
Yeah.
And to not allow that to go through is a huge, to go through. So I think that was one issue, but kind of going back to where I think something that's important with Dabo.
Did he see it?
Yeah, he was
and
in his
not
shower.
Want to say anything because he didn't want to throw his guys under the bus, per se.
He called his daddy,
or did he see it and maybe he was just so disturbed that he's like, I don't want to think about it again.
Well, I'm with you. No, McCreary. But yeah, well, let me say this: he called his daddy. He called his daddy.
I'm kidding.
No, they saw it. Paterno knew it.
Yeah,
I know that.
And Paterno,
but
just like you're saying,
but how much? But that's what I'm saying. Like, how much did you know? Like, did Paterno ever see it, or did they?
But
like that's what I'm saying. If you saw that, you might not want to ever think of it again. That's why you never say that. I know it was
conceivable. He knew all of it.
And at that time too, if you were McCreary and you saw it, and you're not just, I don't know, think about it again, you might just be like, fuck that, dude. People might be like, what the fuck were you doing in there? You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Is it at a time that, you know?
Yeah, but think about this, though. The legend of Joe Paterno already existed. Like, meaning the Joe Paterno was bigger than the man. He was the icon there. I mean, go look I think he already had a statue up. He had everything. So there is and that really defined Penn State. That defined Penn State's, not just their football, but their university.
Yeah.
I mean, his name's on the library. I mean, you're talking about some serious stuff. And I think the idea was, if this is going on, it's the dirty little secret, and let's protect that scenario. And I think they were protecting the image more. And in turn, I'm sure they kept things away from him, but he knew there was an issue. I have no doubt about that. But I will say then, going into what you were talking about with Dabo, I think, and kind of comparing him to Bryles, like, think about the scenario they're walking into. You've got Florida State, who is an established football powerhouse through Bowden, right? So
Right.
You had all those years. He was taken over by Fisher, and Fisher within, 4 years? I'm trying to think of the exact year he started, but you're talking about a guy that already brought a national championship. So he kind of fulfilled that next legacy of a superstar, which is very hard to do following the legend, right?
Sure, absolutely.
So then you got,
very hard.
right, and then now you've got Taggart, who comes in, and while I think he was a relatively popular pick in the sense that he was a hot name, and Florida State's learning a new life right now, which is they're not the elite program from a money standpoint.
Not in the conference, let alone the country.
Right. So now they have to deal with the fact that they can actually be poached. I mean, there was no poaching.
Correct.
Bobby Bowden.
If you went calling, Florida State went calling, very similar to Alabama, and now obviously we're getting
absolutely.
ours. But yes,
But now look at it.
Calling, no matter if you were the first or the last, if you gave somebody an offer and brought them in, then you automatically were at that high interest level.
But now if you look at Florida State, they're not that top tier program, because a simple fact is you've got an A&M that can go out and pay a $75 million guaranteed contract. Florida State cannot do that.
Is
and I know
Jimbo Fisher the type of guy that would, since he was playing in Florida, go in there and just dog out the program?
I mean, there's been lots of stories, but the real big thing with Fisher, and I saw it as a graduate, was, and I laugh because I tell my wife, I said, I noticed when he stopped shaving, something was up. And there's the stories about, number one, it's true. It's true, but if you know, like, he had the thing with his son. His son's got that, I think it's called Fanconi anemia,
yes,
which will kill him by the time he's like 22 or 23. It's something really serious. And so the university stepped up and figured out ways to get him more money on his contract and help him in that manner, because they wanted to show their dedication to it. But that's a huge burden for a parent, as you and I know, to think about your child and not being able to outlive you.
Well, yeah, and the demands of
college football, yeah,
any college
yeah.
coach, but a D1 big pro, yeah, that's a lot.
So then what I think the next thing then was the divorce with his wife, and there's all the rumors about, that she cheated on him, but that clearly, I think, started to, he clearly started stepping away from some of his duties in the program, and as a human being, I can understand that. For the money he was making, it's a little tough to swallow, and especially as an alumnus there,
yes.
But there was a lot of damage done. And then the idea being now, like, an A&M, who, if you went back 10 years and someone said A&M versus Florida State, like, that's not even in the same ballpark of a job. And now, because of the financial implications of it, it matters. And so I think the big difference is, so now getting to Bryles, you've got a guy, Taggart, whose career is on the line, because a lot of people said the same thing. You look at his his record, he has turned around programs, but his overall record, I don't even think he was 500. He was right at close to
Oregon, but how long was he there? 2 years?
No, that's career. Like, because,
really?
man, he
had a good career.
Well, he rebuilt.
Maybe it was the end of but he went into what was it, South Florida?
Yeah, South Florida.
And they came.
I think it was
coming
Western
off
Kentucky.
like a 1 or 0 win year.
Right. So he's transformed programs, and I think that was a big thing for him.
Lucky if it was a 1-year deal, then dude, then he got lucky. Maybe I don't know.
Right, but so now he is the end of the Florida State era. I mean, of all the records that Florida State had, the last one they had was the bowl streak, and I think he compromised some of his own ideals to try to keep that streak alive, because what people need to understand is he grew up a Florida State fan. So he's a fan of that university, which means he knows the history. And I'm sure in his mind, the last thing he wants to do. Yeah, well, he doesn't want to be the guy that ruins it.
Picking up the phone and calling me and say, hey, we want you to be one of the on the coaching staff, an assistant coach to one of the coordinators.
Yeah,
at Clemson,
and you'd be like,
you're going to learn under him, and then maybe 1 year,
and you're like, I'm gone.
Yeah, I want to do that.
I'm gone.
I'm out of here.
How much do I have to pay you?
Yeah, exactly.
So, I think what happened with Bryles is an incredible. You can't deny his offensive talent. Like he could turn around our offense.
Mind. That's what I'm saying. It could really be good for you.
But there was a desperation there in the fact that if we didn't turn this around, and his offensive coordinator pick was bad, but at the same time, his offensive coordinator pick, Walt Bell, the problem with it was he was never anticipating having Walt Bell call plays. But when things started coming apart and he had to spend more time dealing with team issues, he had to do that. And all of a sudden he had a guy that wasn't prepared. So you go after a guy that you think can do a quick fix. The problem with that is in those instances, you sometimes have to compromise your values in that. And he very well may have done that. I mean, can I speak to whether he knew or not? The culture was so deep at Baylor with all the stories. I struggle to find how it's one thing to be like, did I have knowledge? Did I set up guys to go and be with, escorts and that kind of stuff? But at the same time, how it is. You have, our groups of friends and everything. You hear inklings of anything. And so when you start to hear that, and I gotta be honest with you, it's one thing to talk about football, but you
have 10 people, you whisper one in 1 year, and at the end it could be something completely different.
But it still has an undertone of what's going on.
Correct.
And you start as you get to becoming an adult and have children. I've got a little girl, you've got girls. You got to kind of start thinking that way. That you're like, what? How do you allow that to go on?
Correct. You definitely put things into perspective differently, but. At the end of the day, it's also like I said before, the guy at the helm of this thing, was not just his boss, but his dad.
Yeah.
So, I mean, are you going to ever know? I mean, I guess what it brings it down to is this. You guys need to get your act together. And this is coming from a Clemson fan. And I said it when we were watching your game this year with Sibba. I go, love it. We're kicking your ass. And then it got to the point where I literally said to the boys, okay, this isn't becoming I'm feeling uncomfortable about this.
Yep.
It's not good for our conference. And what's not good for the conference is not good for us either, okay? Because we've got it. At the
matters
end of the day, when it all comes down to, we're not going to stand on our own and be like, if we have to fight battles against another Power 5, if something happens or somebody has to stand up.
Can't afford to lose anymore.
Right, exactly. So we need to, be behind the rest of the conference in terms of that. And the only way, I believe football is going to get better. I mean, maybe they do a conference shift and put you on the other side at this point. They might need to start thinking about it the way we've been going. Because before, when it was you guys, the last several years was way more competitive than the years I was in school against Florida State. We'd watch it in our graduating years, and we knew a few years you guys still had the help. But then we started to get better, and then the tables turned, and that's that's why we're doing it. We love this shit. But at the end of the day, it can't be, we've come on strong. And I still believe you guys can too. And I think, we've rolled everybody. And I do believe, especially after the first couple of years of just rolling right into the ACC championship and rolling through it after the first few years of that, and that we've been doing it as of late. That needs to be more competitive for our conference. Like we just, we're it's as reluctant as I may feel. Like, well, maybe Miami will put up a fight, or maybe this team will, and then we just go beat the crap out of them.
Well, you can't continue to roll into those games with teams with 4 losses, and that's been even when Florida State won in 2013. I mean, we played. Was it Duke that year, or was that maybe? I think it was Duke
or Tech.
It was nothing. I mean, granted, we were pretty strong that year, but I think you got a few things. I think something about the ACC though that is probably what hurts us a little bit, especially compared to like the SEC. Is the SEC, as much as it's overblown, this whole like SEC this, SEC that, but they play a brand of football that is a vast majority of the conference. So meaning, like, you watch a brand of football that Alabama plays, and while they're the head of the class, when you see a strong LSU team, a strong Auburn team, they play a style of football that's very, very similar.
Okay.
And so what you've got now is, I mean, think about what you got in the ACC. I mean, you're
going to at least have one of those come back to center because Paul Johnson's gone.
Right, but I mean, even think about it. You had Wake with Grobe. You know that they were the misdirection team. I hated them, but they played a brand.
That's how they went to the ACC. They went to beat
the
Orange Bowl.
Right,
something.
But you go look at Boston College. Why does Boston College pose fits for everybody? Because they play Big Ten football all the time, and it's not that they're better. It's and there are games where they get blown out, but they play with oversized linemen. They run you over. They try to run you out of position. There's so many different styles and variations of play that I think about all the times you watch teams slip up. Like, what was it a couple years ago when you guys played? Was it NC State where you almost lost on a field goal? Mm-hmm. You don't see the consistency in the style of play like you do in those other conferences. I mean, even think about it. Even the Big 12 is like that in the Pac-12. It's no defense, but their styles are very similar.
We lost to Pitt during the year. That was the following
and look
year.
at Stanford. Stanford was kind of the oddball in the Pac-12 for a long time, and sometimes that served them well. They'd play power defense,
and people
they play running
play
games.
With it. And people adjusted, and now they're struggling.
I don't play against it in practice. I don't see it consistently enough where I can learn how to defend it all.
Yeah.
And it's not really an excuse, but it's a style of football that I think they've struggled with the ACC, and I think there was this belief when Miami and Virginia Tech came in that it was going to create this new class of football, and it never really did. I mean, even look at Virginia Tech. I mean, Beamer ball is not. I mean, you might see good special teams somewhere else, but you did not duplicate those styles, and so therefore you've got recruiting challenges and some of these guys, they want to go to the SEC. They just want to play with the big boys, and they want to go smash mouth and pound football and play against, very similar and kids that they played against in high school. And it's a brand, I guess is my point. It's a brand. And I think the ACC has struggled mightily to develop a brand. And the unfortunate part is, I think with Florida State and Clemson is there's very few years where we've both put it together at the same time. And where we could create that the start of that.
I mean, the year we were ranked, I think the last time we lost to you, we were ranked really high. That might have even been like a Lamar Jackson Louisville year. You came into Death Valley and beat the snot out of it. It was like 55.
That was our championship year, yeah. And you guys were ranked high. But I mean, we did that. That was a special year for us. That was probably, I don't know. The 99 team was good, but man, that team was unbelievable. And the fact was, it was because we had a quarterback that came out of nowhere. I mean, we didn't know. I mean, we knew we had a 5-star Jameis Winston, but nobody knew he was going to do what he was going to do. It would have been nicer if
was he a freshman?
Redshirt freshman. I think it's the brand. I think the ACC has struggled to put a brand in, and it's happened continuously.
The network will help that. I don't know. I mean, it's helped the SEC in terms of. I feel like possible. Money, it's helped them, but I don't know if it's necessarily helped their popularity outside of their own following already.
Yeah.
People that are SEC homers or grads or fans, well, they might like it, especially guys that are college football. Go, yeah, I watch the SEC network. I'll put it on. I'll listen to Feinbaum, and I'm an AC, because I love it all around. But I'm not as much of a fan like those folks. Like, I'm hoping the ACC network will be something I watch. But, quite frankly, I got you, like you said, I have 3 daughters. So I'm like, what's really benefiting right now from those networks, the SEC, and I think the ACC will fall in suit? Women's college softball.
Yep, absolutely. I think too, like you think about it, is you're kind of half in, half out on the idea that the ACC brand, if you think about it, for all the have-nots that I guess we'd consider in football, are the haves in basketball.
Oh yeah.
So it's
but
almost
we don't
like
play in that court very often. You a little more than us. We'll sometimes, but we don't.
No, but
the high of our season in basketball is like if we happen to give a game to Duke or North Carolina on our court, and it's like we lose, but it's close.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, that was cool.
Yeah.
But if you think of like, just look at it, you're talking about, okay, so let's just take some of our best years. So you got your Clemson and your Florida State. Let's just say they're football-wise, and they're out there really, knocking it down. Even your Miamis, your Virginia Techs. You take those teams, and then you go move into basketball, and they're completely irrelevant. And who are your relevant teams? Duke, North Carolina.
Syracuse is the third we bought in when we did that deal.
Right, but it's just
that was more on the basketball.
But
side,
I'm telling you, if you and I went and go and visit Chapel Hill, and you and I went and visited, Duke, we would go in there, and they would be like,
we don't
foot what?
Yeah, we don't care.
Exactly, and even still, Florida State's had some better basketball years recently, but the reality is, I'm going to watch football.
They feel about football the way we feel about basketball at our school.
Right, and I think that
and vice versa.
And that's another brand issue. And like I said, I go back to I look at it like even if you look at the Big 12, and the Big 12 from a team standpoint and the geography is a disaster.
Oh,
it's an absolute disaster.
The footprints everywhere.
Yeah, but the fact of the matter is, if you watch that football, you know what kind of football you're going to get. Like when I'm going to go watch Oklahoma, watch a West Virginia, even Texas, and they're down, but I'm going to get marginal defense, and I'm going to get a lot of scoring.
Yeah,
you go look at the Pac-12, a lot of ways very similar, but you know what you're going to see. Like if I'm going to go watch Oregon USC, I'm probably going to see a shootout, and there's going to be something
you're
like that.
You're going to see, and I liken it to be very similar, like you said, between the two. In terms of a lot of points could be on the board, but the difference in my eyes is Pac-12 would be done more so through the air, where Big 12 is a mix of both.
I agree. No, that's a good point. I agree.
You'll see look at the backs that come out of the year have huge rushing seasons because, well, again, marginal defense, people that don't tackle.
Yep.
You just, you can rip it off on running the ball too. And now in today's game, just swing passes, little dumps, little passes that are pretty much an extension of the run almost, just to get them out in space to start the ball with. A running back can, but that's kind of the way I see it. You have running, obviously, but that it's West Coast football.
Yeah,
that's, just as in the NFL.
But you can define it, and that's, and I agree with you. You can define it. I think you look like, again, I know you mentioned that Paul Johnson's gone, but it was like you and I both would feel the same way. Oh my God, we're playing Tech. I hope we can friggin' tackle. And then get a 2-touchdown lead, and you're going to blow them out.
Yep.
Don't get down by 2 touchdowns. You're done.
You're done.
They'll just milk the clock. And so it was like, and then at the end, granted, it's your team, but even if it's not your team, you're like, am I really enjoying this? And it's not. I'm not blaming it on Georgia Tech. I'm not blaming it on the other team. It's the idea that you play these different types. It's like Boston College. Boston College coming to Tallahassee or Clemson in September is a totally different game.
Game day was there this year because it was a night game, cold. Right. They were like, Clemson's going to lose because they're not used to the elements.
Yeah, but you do still see it, and it's like part of what used to be somewhat of the ACC football, and granted it was in the 90s, certainly when I was there, it was Florida State heavy, but it was more of a Southern speed type of game, types of games. And there was good defense because those Florida State teams used to be able to go at it with Florida and play with that. And clearly Clemson in this stage can go head to head.
NFL defenders off of
And it was it was athletes. Yeah. It was athletes everywhere. But now you look at it and go, is Boston College an athletic epicenter in football?
No.
No, they're like I don't go out there and go athlete.
They might get like some really good players. I don't know if I'd necessarily call them athletes. I mean, it's like blue collar, it's like these guys are just like, they are really good, almost not because they're like gifted, because they worked hard to get there.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I don't disagree with you. It's, there's definitely, the question is, how would you fix that image? I mean, like,
it's tough.
I almost thought like, I guess it was probably Dabo came in, gosh, we're going in, 8 years now or something like that, next season. And I think it was like, a couple years after that, there was an overhaul of a bunch of like great coaches like Beamer for, what's his name?
Fuentes.
Yes. Everybody thought Bud Foster. And to be honest, I give credit to Bud Foster. I've always said it. I think, there are... people are sometimes can be great coordinators that are not supposed to be head coaches, and you see it so often, like Muschamp and stuff. I think he's a perfect great.
Mickey Andrews at Florida State,
right?
The same way.
No. But and that's why I hope and pray with Venables. Like I love that he's staying put, but it's to Bud Foster, he stayed put or whatever. I don't know what the dealing was, but Fuente was somebody I thought was going to really give them a spark more on the offensive side. And then you got Bud Foster running in the solid, traditional Virginia Tech type defense, and that would really do something for them. And it hasn't. It's the same thing at Virginia. It's like, what's his name?
Brock Mendenhall.
Yeah.
Or not Brock. Bronk and all Mendenhall.
Yeah. I mean, like, these are guys that, they came off and they were doing good, not in some little scrub school. They were doing good jobs. And,
right.
And that at that point in time, I thought that there might have been a little bit of changing in the face of the football, and maybe it would elevate us all as a whole. And it's just not. It hasn't. There's been some it's spotty, I guess. It's not on the positive side, and it's definitely not consistent. Okay, because look at Fedora. He came in that one year they were ripping. We met, and then all of a sudden, like the next year, it was like, okay, we have something going, and they were just gone, completely gone.
But if you think about it, and it's funny, it's the glass guy on.
Look at the other
Last Chance U.
conferences. There usually is maybe between 2, 3, 4 teams that you see on a regular basis, usually in the conference championship.
Yeah.
Like rivalry, too. Like, look at Alabama, Georgia. That's been a good one.
Yep.
Ohio State and whoever they're facing has been usually pretty bad. But let's be honest, that's not the game. It's the game the week before that is usually their conference championship against Michigan, or 2 weeks before.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you really look at it, though, there's history. The ACC struggles with history. I mean, think about Florida State's only been in the ACC since 92. I mean, which we've
been there since, 70?
Yeah, but it's just, but I mean, you're talking about, there are people, there are teams out there playing each other that have been playing each other for a century, so you've got some of that built in, and even going into it's like Texas, Oklahoma. I don't know how long that rivalry's been around, but I know it's been around for a very, very long time, the exact years. But I just think
this is where we need you pulling stuff up for us.
I think the
did you hear me, Mike?
The challenge really is going to be, I don't know, the ACC really is really going to be able to do much as far as defining the brand. The idea is going to be, you're gonna have to be able to elevate programs that are struggling to, for example, it's just like with Florida State. Florida State has been a co-ed school since I think 1947 or 1952. That's not very long. It was a women's school. So they don't have the background, because a majority of the coaches' contracts are paid basically by boosters. It's speaking engagements. It's all that. I mean, if you really look at it, the state funds are generally right around $1 million, a little less than $1 million. So a guy making $5 million a year, it's all the guarantees and all the work they do through the booster tours and all that. If you look at their contracts, and so you look at a Harbaugh's, what's he making, $9 million or whatever a year, or $10 million? I don't know, something ridiculous. Like that's not coming through Michigan. That's coming through all the programs they set up for him.
Yeah.
So you got Florida State that's going to struggle in that area. You look at another team like Miami. Okay. Miami's big sell through all their great years was the idea that they sold these guys on this Miami South Beach lifestyle that you really can't get away with anymore. I mean, you can see when they brought it back and they got busted again. So, but other than that, you've got
because of social media.
Yeah.
Everything's being taken a picture of, so they can't sell that lifestyle because that. And I mean, quite frankly, as a Clemson fan, that you don't want. I mean, like, because of today's society, like. I'm proud of the fact that we have, a culture and a certain culture we adhere to, and we try to stick to it as much as possible. Because, again, it avoids the riffraff, and that's extra BS that, is extra work for, whoever's involved. And as fans, you don't need that.
Well, you think about... and
you work so hard to get there. You don't want to have some, goofball tear it all down by making a stupid decision.
Well, I think that's kind of going back to originally what we were talking about. When you're talking about, university and like Bryles being hired, and that's really I think a product of the pressure that's on Taggart right now, because Florida State is in the midst of dealing with something that most fans have never dealt with.
Right.
So you've got that pressure. When I think about Dabo, like, and I'll be very honest in admitting that I was completely wrong, but Clemson at that time, I mean, they got, Tommy Bowden. I know that was kind of a big thing, a Bowden name, and it was a big deal.
A big thing?
Yeah.
I went to school there from 94 to 99. Tommy West, right?
That's 5 years, folks.
Yes, that is correct. 4.5 is when I was actually in class. But, yes, I was there for 5 years. And I actually told my kid the other day, I was like, my parents told me you have 4 years.
Right.
I told them the other day, I said, I'll give you 5 if, depending on what we're looking at. Mm-hmm. After that, it's all on you. I was like, but today's day and age, sometimes it's like a gajillion credits. And I don't want my kid thinking they want to, like, off themselves for the stresses of college, man.
Right.
Screw that. Some of them are. I know your kids enough to know who you need to press the pedal down more on, and when you need to come off. So which ones you need to be careful with. But anyways, yeah. So I mean, the fact of the matter is that Tommy West was. I mean, mediocre was best. That was best.
Right, but
so when Tommy Bowden, especially after we get our teeth kicked in, again, as I said earlier, and as you just alluded to, by his father, year in and year out, to hear that we're going to get the son of was like, let's have a fiesta. I mean, this was right thing. When was that? That was right after, when was that?
But think about this. This was kind of the important
fiesta.
Yeah, but this is the important part with this is it's not like Tommy Bowden at the time. It was a good hire. I thought it was a good hire, but
he took us from mediocre at best to
solid,
like
and some strong seasons,
9 and whatever 93. But we could never get to a 10-win season.
Right, but this being said, he was not like the hottest name in coaching at that point. Not saying he was a bad name, but he wasn't the hottest. It's not like going out and trying to get,
1999,
trying to go get like Harbaugh when Harbaugh decided to come back to college. Now, you know what I mean? It wasn't that kind of name.
Right.
So then when they hired, and obviously they kind of ran their course with him. And then when they hired Dabo, like really, Dabo was an unknown.
He was an interim coach.
Right. So
he proved himself. And
so there was no pressure. And in his first few years, it's not like he had good results, but he's not what he is today. But what the thing was is the university committed to him, and he was able to build a program the way they wanted. He did not, there was not this expectation in the national media of who he was. There's many people going like, oh my God, thank God they hired him. What was he, a wide receivers coach? So all that pressure was off him. He built a program. He obviously sold them on the idea that he was going to build it with character, because he did. But then all of a sudden, when he proved his character and he brought in a few recruits, he clearly, obviously he's an excitable guy. He's a likable guy. He's got, and just the things that he's done outside of football that don't get the press. But the point being is he was never under any pressure to change his style or what he was doing. And that was tremendous for him because he built it right on a strong foundation.
Was able to get the buy-in from from our athletic department,
right? Right.
Nowadays that's so huge. I mean, he turned around and for a guy that was just like a wide receivers coach and then an interim coach, right when they kind of gave him the job, he's like, okay, we have to do this with the facility. You need to start spending money, and they did.
Right, but how many guys right now do you take your top 5 hottest names in college football if they were out there coaching wise, minus your Nick Saban and Dabo right now, because obviously they'd get a lot of credence and credibility. But if you took your big hot names that you've had, okay, in college football, go back the last 3 years, we can pick a few names. But the idea being, if you took those guys, how many of those guys would have 4 years to develop character above wins? They wouldn't. There's all that pressure. Yeah. You know why? Because they'd also be getting $10 million contracts. And so, I'll put it to you this way. With Fisher as a perfect example, they're going to live and die by that. And granted, there's a little bit of sour grapes with the idea that with Florida State, but the truth of the matter is he was a good coach, and I would be lying if I didn't say he wasn't a good coach. But if he loses his way with character, like because he owns some of the sidewalk Florida State's walking on right now, if he loses his way with that and they've guaranteed him all that money, there's nowhere to go with that. That was the big thing.
Do you think that happened as a result more so of his personal life becoming a distraction and him taking either taking his eye off of his coaching responsibility, or just saying, screw it, man, my family comes first, and that will have to take a back seat right now?
I mean, it's hard to get into the mind of a person, and I can certainly understand it. I think he was also struggling and fighting with the AD. And here's what he wanted. This is a simple fact. I think, and again, this is just opinion, but I think he wanted Nick Saban control. He wanted Nick Saban control. But the fact is, he doesn't. I mean, he did win a national championship, but he doesn't have Nick Saban's continuous issue. And so I think when you took all those three things together, I definitely think his focus on football, and I don't think think about it this way. He went 3 straight years.
Did Bobby have that type of control? Nick Saban control at the end?
They started stripping it away, and I think that's where it all got salty and ugly.
But didn't he have it, and then you guys started going the other way? And
because
they stripped it from?
Yeah, well, because yes.
And did you start going, and on top of that, did you actually, when they actually gave him that type of control, is that when things started kind of taking a turn for him, and it was starting to be, because you knew, just like with any of them, any big player, quarterback, coach, okay, it's probably time for them.
Yeah, I mean,
especially college.
His fatal mistake was when Rick left, that he hired his son, who was completely outmatched as an offensive coordinator. And so that started to show the holes in what they were doing. But the other problem he had was back then, I mean, Bowden was somewhat infamous for this, was the idea that he could sign a number 1 class at the end of the last 24 hours of any signing period, except at about the last probably 6 or 7 years, he did it by taking all the top talent that they knew couldn't qualify. I mean, I go back to names like Callahan Bright. I mean, you don't even know who these guys are. That guy was supposed to be all-world defensive tackle, and I don't know.
Spell his name.
Probably not. But needless to say, he never ended up anywhere. But we did that a lot. I mean, I go back and Fred Rouse. Fred Rouse. Remember that name? He was the next Randy Moss.
From tough situations, but
But it looked pretty. Listen, it looked pretty when you're talking about you're talking about the rankings. That's why it's all nice. It's all window dressing right now. What Dabo's done that is truly amazing is that
we can develop these guys pretty good.
Bingo. It's
Yes.
development.
I knew that's what.
And that going back to that Last Chance U, the third season, and that coach, as crazy as he is, his thing that he mentioned, he goes, coaching's kind of a joke. He goes, it's all about the players.
Didn't it say something?
All about the players.
Yeah.
And if you
Didn't
look at it, that's what it is.
At the post that or something that he got like arrested, or maybe I heard something after that. That coach got like arrested for something like. I don't know.
He's
what
a
it
little
was.
out there. I'll tell you that. Now, granted, he's dealing.
He's hanging with the thuggish, ruggish bone there.
But if you look at it though, that's kind of what it is. It's guys that can't handle it, and can they learn how to get themselves cycled back into it? It's that I guess my point to going back to is Dabo was able to build a culture without pressures that all big coaches have, and because of that, because of that, he did it right. Now the fear of that is I hire the unknown, I give him that time, and I get 6 years down the line to find out he's not really a good coach. And I think that's every team's fear.
And so where's that happy medium?
It was.
He
told the German player, "I am your new Hitler."
Who?
The coach for
Last Chance U, Jason Brown.
Wonderful.
Texted him that he was like, "I'm your new Hitler."
And he got arrested for that?
No, he didn't get arrested. He resigned.
Oh, he was. Yeah, I knew something. I knew it.
But they're going back to that school though, so it must be a new coach.
Be a new coach. That'll be it.
Or maybe he said it after. Maybe he said it after after the season, because they record. It's last year's season,
Right?
So maybe that happened afterwards.
Yeah.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it's but you're not dealing. I guess the high character matters. I just think in the churn and burn, and you said like the ACC network, all this stuff, everything is so money related. And you and I have talked about this a long time. To me, pro and college football have seen their best days were back in the 90s. Pre-social media. Yep. Bobby Bowden got $1 million, $2 million contracts.
You're like, whoa!
Yeah, but
he deserves it. He's the man.
He did, but we're talking about going into the 2000s, and now guys are like quadruple that.
Oh, quadruple?
Yeah,
they're getting like 10 times that.
Yeah, and they have no track record compared to him.
I know.
Obviously now you got your Dabos, you got your Sabans, but they're very few.
It's just like the NFL and these contracts for these guys that are out of control, that aren't worth what they're getting paid, but because the market sets it at that, this whole thing with like.
But you notice they're all set to be cut.
Well, but no, they're gonna. Is Prescott worth the money they're gonna break him off in a minute? No, but the market, he's better than what's his name that we were just talking about from Washington? He's better than a lot of the guys that got broke off last year.
Yeah.
He did a better job than Kirk Cousins did last year. Shoot.
Yeah.
And that guy got paid ridiculous money for no reason.
Yep.
Not that I'm saying he's not worth it, but it's like, it's like they're setting, it's like a bidding war on a house, and going in the wrong direction. It's like, I don't understand. If one guy is, a good quarterback and a team needs him, and, but he's not the best, well, then he should get paid good money. But he shouldn't be getting paid the best money, because it's just like, it just keeps going up. I think Jimmy Garoppolo can be great, but what the heck did they decide to pay him all that money based off of what exactly? A few games that he came in?
But that's how desperate it is.
I know. So that's out of control, man.
Especially at $15 billion industry,
I know we're good. I hate preseason rankings, bro.
I do, but could you believe the upcoming schedule at the Georgia Dome? Alabama and Duke.
And Daniel Jones just was everything that team had, I promise you. That's why I was kind of a fan of him as a Giants fan. Just not that early of a pick, but he was everything they had. Alabama's going to absolutely... See, that's not good for the ACC. It's also not good when you had your shot a few years ago on the opener and were expected to compete and you got...
Well, we played all right. Our quarterback got nuked.
Yeah.
Yes, that's how I would describe that game in one word is.
Yeah. Yep, your offensive line needs to do better. That's where it needs to start.
And then let's see. So then the next year, Florida State there's 3 games, which is weird.
Isn't
they're showing
there's been like
West
multiple
Virginia,
games.
Florida State, Georgia, Virginia.
This is the Chick-fil-A?
Yeah, but 2020. And then Auburn, North Carolina. 2021 is Alabama, Miami. Ooh, these aren't very good.
Looks like somebody needs to go down and make a play for the director of that whole.
You guys play 2022. You guys play Georgia Tech, which by then they'll actually probably have a redone roster, and we'll see what kind of team they're going to be.
Maybe coach will have left us for Alabama, like they all say.
What's the buyout? $50 million? Is that what it is? Some obscene.
Specifically.
Yeah, to them. Yeah, which
the
was smart.
Alabama buyout clause. Absolutely.
It was smart. It was a smart call.
You don't want to go back out of that. Maybe it does. So, yes. Okay. So, yeah, I don't like preseason rankings, bro. I just don't dig it, man.
Well, you just don't know.
Hey. Ooh. Interesting.
All right.
Do I
So
have volume on this going on? What do I got? Hello? Am I allowed to have volume? Hello, darling. I guess not. I don't know what's going on here. It looks like a couple new Tool songs is what it looks like to me, buddy. Have you seen these?
no, I thought we were done with that. I thought he was doing vineyards.
He is doing vineyards. Didn't you see him?
Yeah. I saw him in Napa Valley, although his vineyard's in Arizona. But yeah, he was like kicking it at like a Michelin starred restaurant, like Mohawk suit.
Nice.
Like I walked out, I was like,
So weird.
Whoa.
What? You
10
found-
hours ago, Maynard confirms new Tool album is in fact coming August 30th, 2019.
It's been like 13 years.
yeah, it's already recorded, I think.
Why am I not getting volume on this cock?
That is awesome.
Yeah, dude.
That is totally awesome.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, bro.